Hi everyone, welcome Croiso to this Q&A session on the C21 curriculum and basically on the life you would experience as a Cardiff medical student. So I will just stay on hold until all our participants have joined the meeting because I can still see the numbers increasing continuously. And after I say it's constant, we can start off. But in the meantime, feel free to send in all your questions on the Q&A option right there. It should be somewhere on your window, and we will try our best to answer all the questions that you send through. Yep, so you can start sending your questions through. And I'll just wait till everyone has joined. And yep, I do see some questions coming in. So thank you for that, everyone. Do send them in. And I think the number of participants have kind of leveled out, and I think everyone has been successful in joining. So we have a panel of 4 medical students here today to answer all of your questions. And I think we do have a question from Natalia Martin. I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced that name correctly. And she's asking, what accommodation would we recommend? So anyone in the panel, does anyone want to have a go at answering that? What accommodation would you recommend? Yep. Anyone in the panel wants to say that? Yeah, Nathan.
Yeah, so to be fair, a lot of the university accommodations are really good. Personally, I was in Talibont, and that seems to be quite a popular one because it's a large student community there, and it's just Cardiff University students. It's a brilliant place to network with other groups of people. There are also plenty of other university on options. So you've also got like Sagenith, and then you've also got university halls as well. But I think a lot of people do quite like Talibont. Especially for healthcare students, it's quite well positioned between being near town. So you've only got a 20-minute walk to town where you've got biosciences for your dissections and sciences, and also 20 minutes to the Heath Park campus where you'll be having some other lectures and things. So personally, that's where I put down, and I think that's quite good, but there's definitely plenty of other options, and I would advise you to go and have a look at the ones on offer too.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Nathan. Does anyone else want to add anything? Asha, Catherine, or yeah?
I was just going to say, I'm just going to pop a link in that will, as a response, that will give you all the information on all the different types of accommodation that you can be at in your first year. So you can just have a more detailed look. But like Nathan said, I would recommend, from my personal experience, Tally. I was in Tally Court my first year, and it was great. It wasn't too far from the med school, probably about 20-25 minutes. It's also really close to town as well. It's like a good halfway point. And then everything you could possibly need is all around, like really nice student pubs, like social areas. It's quite close to the student union as well. But wherever you will be, because your year will be quite big, you will definitely have other people around you doing the same thing. So you wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So we've got another question from an anonymous attendee. They're asking us whether we do full body dissections. Arsha, would you like to have a go with that, please?
So I started when it was COVID. So we didn't do full body dissections, we did prosections. But to my understanding, yes, we will be doing full body dissections, and you do it within groups. So it wouldn't be just you alone, and you're in the anatomy building, there are staff around you, there are people there to help you. So yes, you will be doing full body dissections.
Yep, and just to add on to that, because I personally am a second year student, so we are part of the batch that joined just after COVID. So yes, we had full body dissections, and I know the year ones that are there in right now do have more of full body dissections, if that makes sense, because they've got more freedom with the COVID guidelines. So they tend to kind of go to the anatomy center more often. So yeah, we do have full body dissections. Yeah, so we've got another question from Mary, and then Mary wants to know whether we choose where our placements will be. Does anyone want to say anything about that?
You don't get to choose where your placements are, so you get given placements. I can't quite remember how it works in first year. I think in first year you get given the odd GP day, I think once a week. In second year, I think it's the same. And then your clinical years in third, fourth, and fifth year, you get given a set of placement blocks which last 8 weeks, and you'll rotate between all different types of specialties, and you can end up anywhere in Wales. So you could be in the Heath, you could be half an hour down the road in Bridgend, you could be a bit further up north, you can get put in North Wales as well. So it is very varied, and from my experience, everyone just gets placed everywhere. Like you'll get to experience West Wales, North Wales, South Wales, so it's a good mix across your 3 years.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. So we also got a few questions around the same area from Emmy, Ruby, and Brian. And basically they want to know what to expect in the first year, and basically what the hardest part about first year is, and specifically first term. And then they also want to know specifically about how to deal with PCS. So does anyone want to have a go at sharing your experience with all of that, first year in general and PCS?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Please go for
It
it,
can
yeah.
be really difficult, actually, I think, to settle into university. So honestly, if you're finding it difficult in the first term, don't worry. I think all of us do, and you're certainly won't be the only one who's struggling a little bit. In terms of preparation, I'll kind of go through like these chronologically, if that makes it easier. Just make sure you're on top of your A-level topics that you've done, especially if you've taken a gap year or you've done some time away. And if you haven't done all sciences or maths, it can be useful just to cover a bit of those bases. Apart from that, we do really build up from kind of the ground upwards in first term. So there's nothing really specific that you have to learn, and don't worry about stressing about reading loads of books over summer or anything. Have a bit of time to relax and get yourself ready in a good state to go into first year. I think a lot of people agree that the difficulty in first year, and especially first term, is just the volume of content. Obviously, you've got like anatomy, physiology, pharmacology. So just take it step by step, make sure you're doing all the pre-reading, go into the lessons with a good understanding of what's coming up, and then try and consolidate that learning afterwards. But you'll hear it from us about 1,000 times. The spiral curriculum at Cardiff means that you will cover the same things again and again, building on those lessons. So make sure, you know, you're getting involved early on, and really just try to enjoy the course, because that's the best part about it. You're here because you love the course, or you should do. So yeah, have that passion and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that is very, very true. And just for anyone who doesn't know what PCS is, would anyone like to kind of explain what PCS is so they kind of have an understanding of what to expect as soon as they join year one? Asha or Catherine, would anyone like to give a go?
From what I remember, PCS is just your basic, stands for Platform for Clinical Science. So you cover the basic physiology. So before you learn about how any of the diseases affect your body, you just kind of cover the normal body, like how the body functions normally. And then you just do all the systems. I remember it being quite intense because there was quite a lot, but you got to remember, like, you're all in the same boat when you start off. No one from my year found it like easy. It was all just kind of, you will just get thrown in and you kind of go through the workbooks, you go through the tutorials. I will say it is a very good foundation to have, but I wouldn't stress too much about it, because like I found that on my placements, like if you ask me what PCS was, like questions about PCS, I don't think I could answer, to be fair. I know a lot more about the clinical science, but it is a very good foundation to have. So I wouldn't get too bogged down with all the details. As long as you have a good solid base to start off with and then build up from there, you will all be fine. Yeah, perfect. And I think we all agree with Catherine on that. Yeah, moving on to another question from Amelia. Do you have any suggestions regarding how best to prepare for the course during summer? Any suggestions about that, about how to prepare for the course? Asha, would you like to have a go with that?
I guess, in my opinion, it's sort of just, as Nathan was saying, is sort of stay on top of what you did in biology and in your A levels, because it's kind of, it'll be quite a long time from your exams from when you start, and it can be kind of scary being in a new place, being in a new environment, learning a lot of things and the volume, and then you have to go back get over the basics again to sort of keep on top of your A levels. I'm not saying study the entire holidays, because you already have the information, you already know everything. It's just making sure you don't forget it. So, occasionally in the holidays, look over your notes, just remember what you did and what you know. So that way, when you come to the university in September, it's not a big shock and it's not loads of information coming at you at once. And I guess over the summer, also relax. PCS is your first term. It's a lot. Again, you're in a new environment. You have so many other things to worry about. You have making friends, you have the course, you have so many things that you have to focus on. You've earned the summer, relax. You've just done your exams or you're on a gap year, or you've been working. There's so many things you could have been doing before you came to university. So as well as preparing for the course, relax.
And that is very, very true. Thank you for that. Also, we got an interesting question from an anonymous attendee. How many people fail first year? Does anyone want to talk about that? Or
That's a pretty difficult question. Without being too harsh, try not to be so pessimistic. Like, there's not a set number of people who fail a year. They're not going to say, right, bottom 30, you're out. It doesn't work like that. There's a standard that obviously people expect doctors and students to be at. So as long as you're at that standard, that's fine. But the thing is, like, obviously the university is there to support you and do everything they can to keep you in. They don't want to fail you. So honestly, try not to worry about that. I completely understand that it is really stressful. But work hard. And if you need help, definitely go and ask for it. But everyone's there to support you. So there's no reason to fail.
Yep, exactly. And I think there's a lot of support services within the university itself to help you out. We've got personal tutors, we've got the SU with different services to help you out. So there's a lot of support for you. So don't worry, you're not by yourself. So yeah. So there's another question from another anonymous attendee. Where do you spend most of the time during first year? So they want to know where most lectures are held. Does anyone want to have a go with that?
Most of your lectures will be at the Heath, and you'll spend some time in the biosci building, which is where you do your full body dissection. Sometimes you have tutorials there. Very occasionally you have joint tutorials with other healthcare students. So sometimes you might be where the pharmacists are just to have a joint tutorial. So it's just kind of everywhere, but I'd probably say majority of the time in UHW.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you for that. We've also got another question from Isabel about accommodation. I think we answered that already, Isabel. So if you do go through the recording or just go through the chat, we've sent a couple of links to help you with that question. Yep, so we've got another question from Louis. What's the biggest challenge compared to A-level study and how have you overcome this? Yeah, does anyone want to talk about that? Comparison between A-levels and first year of med school.
I guess I'll take that.
Yeah, go for
I
it.
guess with A-levels, there's a lot more structure and you know what you have to know. Whereas when you come into medicine, there's so many different avenues. You'll find things you like, things you don't like, but there isn't sort of a set thing that you have to know that is sort of set on. So it's kind of hard knowing. Often you're like, well, I need to know this, I need to know that. And it's sort of trying to focus on sort of covering the basics and maybe not going too specific or too overreaching, because it's a lot of information. Like A-levels was a lot, whereas when you come into medicine, you realize that there's just so many things about the human body and there's so many different aspects. You know, you have your anatomy, you have your physiology, you have the chemistry, there's so many different things in it that you didn't realize comes into medicine. There's also like the social aspect as well. So there's a sort of trying to bridge everything together and connect things and link things as sort of, so in A-levels, from what I remember, it was sort of a bit more disjointed. You had your chemistry, you had your biology and whatnot, and your maths, whereas doing the course now, everything's linked, you know, your chemistry, your biology, your maths, your social sciences, everything was sort of connected in medicine and sort of trying to connect things and not keep things separate in my own mind.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and I think that is very, very true. Once again, Asha, thank you for that. We've got another question about a few questions revolving around work. So the first part of this question is from Mia, who basically wants to know the amount of hours of independent study that they should expect per week. So does anyone want to give a quick answer to that? How many hours of yeah, go on.
I personally, so just to give some background, so I'm currently in 5th year. So looking back, I would say that it depends on who you are as a person, and how much work you put in is how much work you get out, which sounds really like obvious, but I did like work in my first year, but I did also go out a lot. Like I just made new friends. I think my first year I was focused on just trying to enjoy the freedom, or like enjoy coming to a like uni, enjoy meeting all the new people, try different sports, try different societies that I haven't had the chance to before. And then alongside that, just make sure that I got in my study time. And I think it's always better to try and work more efficiently. From the thing that I've learned over the past few years is there's no point spending, hours and hours and hours on something that if you sat down could take you 1 hour if you just blocked out that time, and then you have so much more time to do other things as well. So I wouldn't worry too much about balancing like social life and studies, because you will get around to that, and there are so many people around you as well. Like you'll never be short of people to study with if you work better that way. So
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. We've also got another question from another anonymous attendee who wants to know what study revision methods have worked for you, and are there any resources you can recommend? Nathan, any suggestions?
Yeah, I know a lot of people really don't like me saying this, and some people disagree, but I think it just online and YouTube has some incredible videos and things that you can find. The most important thing for anyone who's studying is to find the method of learning that works for you, whether you're a visual learner, whether you're a learner by doing. And personally for me, I found that if I could see a process in action, usually through a video, that really helped enable me to do different things. Some kind of examples would be things like Khan Academy, Osmosis. They've got some brilliant videos. And then I would usually make a mind map and use colors and really try to make a visually appealing piece of work for me. That's how I learned things. And then in terms of like exam prep, I always think just doing mock questions and like using question banks is a great way to test that knowledge. So it's not just learning it, you've got to test it too and recap that a lot of times to get it into your deep memory. So combining of the two is how I think is the best way.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. So we've got another question from Penelope about accommodation. So once again, I think we answered accommodation in general, but I think the last part of the question you specifically said, when I visited on the open day, a staff member told us that you can share accommodation with other health students only. So from what I'm aware, I think that would be Claudian, right? Or is that not an option at all, panelists, where you can only share accommodation with healthcare students? So from what I'm aware, I might be incorrect here. You can always check the link we've sent on the chat. Tally is shared about is like the common accommodation for first years. So you've got people from different courses. But whereas Claudian, which is a semi-private accommodation situated close to the hospital, and because of its location, it's more convenient for healthcare students to stay there. So because of that, that is why I think that's a healthcare only place. So you've got medics, radiology students, healthcare students basically from different courses. But if you do have any other accommodation specific questions, you can always click on the link that we've sent on the chat, and that will answer any questions to you. Yep, so thank you for that question. We've got another question on Yep. So Amneet and Ian wants to know how we have found opportunities to get involved in clinical research, and how we go about seeking or starting a research project, and basically the research opportunities available. Yep.
I don't mind mentioning that.
Yep, go for it.
So the brilliant part about Cardiff courses is we have plenty of different opportunities in the different years to do something that we're interested in. Those are called your SSCs, or student selected components. So in the first 2 years, you get a big list of loads of different topics that you can choose from with a kind of database of professors who are experts in their fields that you can work with. And in the later years, in year 3, 4, and 5, you get to make your own research projects. So for example, in the coming months, I'll be doing some work with the Welsh Ambulance Service, and that was based on someone that I approached and said, would you be able to be my tutor for this? And then I'll be doing some work on stroke with them. So there is a real good capacity to get involved with research if you want to, and you can really make the projects how you want them. So you do have that flexibility.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that, Nathan. We also got another question from an anonymous attendee and Georgina, who wants to know what we can do in between summer school and then we actually start uni. Or if you had taken a gap year, or if you have not taken a gap year, what's the best way to use that summertime period? Asha, because I think you had a very good answer for this, for a similar question before. Would you like to speak about it?
Yeah, just to reiterate, just sort of learn what your baseline is, know what you don't know. Because you don't want to be surprised when you come in and go, oh my God, I forgot all about osmosis. Maybe you won't, maybe you do, but you might just come in and not know what you know. Again, relax and sort of just try and keep up the level that you're at. You don't have to learn PCS before you do PCS, because you will get to it. You will do anatomy a bajillion times throughout your 5 years, 6 years at Cardiff. You'll do physiology a bajillion times. So you don't have to learn everything before you get to it, because again, we have the lovely spiral curriculum, but just sort of have your A-level baseline and sort of have that when you come into it, and you'll find the first term a lot easier.
Yeah, perfect. And Asan, also know whether you've got any advice you'd give to anyone who's just starting the course, anything you would have done differently before you started medicine at Cardiff here?
Ooh, I guess sort of come in being more organized within my first term, because I was very bad with deadlines and knowing when things were due and what was going on. But sort of knowing before I started the course that, I mean, I should have known that things were due, but sort of planning accordingly. I wish I'd more so not knowledge, but just skills, general like time management skills and revision skills and just life skills before I came to do the course.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. We've also got an interesting question from Poppy. Do you feel separate on the medical campus? How do you feel about having a separate campus? So for those of you who are quite unsure about what she's talking about, what Poppy's talking about, the Heath campus, is slightly isolated from the other campuses. And Poppy wants to know how we feel about that, and whether we feel isolated in general. Nathan, Catherine, does anyone want to say anything about it?
I think because there are so many of you, I don't particularly remember feeling that isolated, because like in first year you pretty much have a very similar timetable, and you'll have a massive group of you walking from Tally to the hospital to your lectures, to tutorials, and then a massive group of you walking back from Heath to Tally, and it was like that with my first year. And also Cardiff is a relatively smallish city that you could probably walk anywhere within 40 minutes, half an hour. It seems like a lot, like a half an hour walk, but the more you do it, the more you get used to it. Like sometimes it just didn't feel like much time at all. And in my personal experience, I never felt isolated away from the rest of the uni. And also I did have a lot of non-healthcare friends as well, just because it depends who your flatmates are. So the first 3 years I had a lot of other healthcare friends and people who were doing completely different courses, and I didn't feel entirely separate from them either. So I think you'll be fine with that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Catherine. So Flori wants to know, so Flori is a postgraduate who's joining medicine as an medicine, and she wants to know if there's a specific accommodation that is populated with postgrads. Does anyone know a postgrad specific accommodation? I personally don't think accommodation there is any specific accommodation for postgrad specifically. Does anyone know anything about such an accommodation? Any panelist? No, right? So from the looks of it, I don't think that's a thing. At least the 4 of us are not aware of it. But once again, we've sent in the links on the chat about any information you want to find about accommodation in general. So Flori, if you go up on that and if you try to check on it, I think you will get an answer to your question. So thank you for sending that question through. Isabel wants to know what placements are like in first year. Nathan, would you like to give that a go?
Yeah, that's fine. So in first year, in the first term, you won't have any placements because you'll be doing your platform for clinical sciences, but then you start to do case after Christmas. And at this point, you'll be doing work around different body systems. So with that, you get placements that are relevant to that. So for example, my first one was a musculoskeletal case. And with that, we have placements with physiotherapists and in our GP. So usually you'll spend one afternoon or one day every week or two with a GP or other allied healthcare professional. And that will be your placement in the first year or two. So you do get that really good clinical exposure to patients with conditions very early on. And the way it works is that you see a patient with the condition that you're studying or a related condition. So you really get to have a holistic view of that person and that condition straight away.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And we also got another interesting question from Shiv. How many lectures do you have a week approximately? Does anyone remember, Catherine, Asha, how many lectures you all had in first year or in med school generally? Yeah.
Can't really remember how many. I remember the first couple of weeks was like 9 to 5 pretty much most days, apart from Wednesday afternoons off for sports. But I just remember like just having quite a lot of back-to-back lectures, but it wasn't too bad because it was broken up quite a bit and they were all kind of very varied. But yeah.
Yeah. Go on,
From
Asha.
what I remember, from what I remember was that there were a lot more in PCS. And sort of once we started doing CBL, case-based learning, for those who don't know, is that it sort of decreased, but it was still about 5, 6 a week, depending on what was happening, what was going on. But usually they're all on the same day or on the same 2-3 days. You don't have lectures every single day because you also have like tutorials, workshops, anatomy mixed in with it. So you're not always in a lecture hall.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think that pretty much answered the question. Yeah, thank you for that question, Shiv.
I just wanted to jump in and say I've seen a couple of questions about the placements at Cardiff. So if you get put on an away placement, for example, if you get put into West Wales or North Wales, so this will be from third year onwards, you will get given accommodation up there. If you are in hospitals around South Wales, so for example in Bridgend or Llantrisant, you will be able to be reimbursed on travel if you use public transport. Public transport around Cardiff is really easy. You can get the bus. Trains run from here to Bridgend and around South Wales. It is useful, I will say, if you do have a car, especially if you are placed in somewhere like Mercer or Royal Glam, which is up in Llantrisant, because public transport to there tends to be a bit long, but you will be in a group with someone, I'm sure, who has a car, so you can easily just share lifts. So with regards to if you're thinking about bringing a car down to Cardiff, I know you can park in Tally, there is a parking, and then in your later years you do get permits around the student areas, and a lot of my mates have their cars down, and it's just really useful to drive to and from placement. And in 5th year, you do get your petrol reimbursed at the end as well.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine, for that. I think you answered a bunch of questions that were there that have been sent through, so thanks a lot for that. So yeah, Sarah says, I've heard that sometimes if you're tested on material that hasn't been covered yet due to the nature of the C21 course. How have you dealt with this? Nathan, do you have an answer for this?
Yeah, so I think what this mainly refers to is our main tests, which are called progress tests, and you'll take these from first year now. You can opt into doing them, and in first 2 years they don't really go into your rankings too much or have that much effect, so don't worry about patients with a whole range of conditions. It's important to have an understanding about all of them, but the thing is just have a go, because as you are exposed to more clinical experiences, you'll see a lot more, and as long as you can apply your knowledge, you're usually in a position where you can at least try. So I know it can appear really daunting, but I think a lot of people find it okay in the end.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And we also got a question on what we use in terms of tech for uni. Is it an iPad, a laptop, a computer? Does anyone want to share their thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
I think it depends on what you prefer. So I've always just liked a laptop because I can't use a tablet. I don't have to write on them. It just annoys me. But just sort of know what you like and what works for you, because you don't want to spend a lot of money on a bunch of devices and then realize you don't use half of them. So sort of some people I know like using pen and paper, old school analog. Some people like their laptop. Some people like tablets because they're quite light to carry around. Just sort of think about where you're going to be and where you're going to spend most of your time, because a laptop or a tablet is quite easy to carry around with you. And so if you're going to be going to lectures, if you're going to be going to the library, it's quite easy to take them with you. But again, just sort of know how you like to revise and how you like to learn and note things down. Because, you know, when I go to lectures, I just prefer using a pen and paper because I feel like if I type on a laptop, I'm not really focusing. But if you know how you like to revise, you'd know what to bring with you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that, Asha. We also got another question from an anonymous attendee. How is accommodation allocated? Is it first come, first served? Just to quickly answer that, because you kind of covered accommodation already. As far as I'm aware, I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure, just because I was personally a bit late with applying and I did not end up getting my first or second choice. So I think as soon as they send out the portal or whatever to kind of fill in your details, do fill it, but I'm not entirely sure if it's just a random or whether it's first come, first served. And we've also got another question from an anonymous attendee. How long is the academic year and how are the breaks split up? Does anyone want to have a go at that? Catherine?
So from what I remember, first 2 years you start in around late September and you'll finish probably around mid to late June-ish with Christmas and Easter. When you get to third year, you'll have the same start, but your Easter will be your SSC period. So as Nathan said earlier, it'll be your research project period. And in fourth year, unfortunately, there is an Easter, so you do just go straight through. And that's the same in fifth year, just to get you ready for when you actually have the job.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. We've got another question from another anonymous attendee. What's the best way to meet people on our course pre-September, pre-enrollment? Anyone got any thoughts on that?
I think there should be for my year, there was a group chat, like a massive medics group chat that we all got added to. So we could kind of see who was in our year beforehand. I met one of my best mates on an offer holder day. We were like having a tour around one of the accommodations, and then we said, oh, hopefully see you in September, and we did. If you're from Cardiff, like I am, I knew a lot of people from school who also came here, so that was also quite nice. But other than that, you meet a lot of people on your first day. You spend a lot of time with a lot of different people. So your case groups, for example, won't stay the same. Your PCS groups won't stay the same. You'll meet loads of different people through placement. And I think that's one of the best things about Cardiff is you're not stuck with the same, for example, like placement group for your clinical years. You're not stuck with the same case group for like the end of first year and second year. So some of my best friends I only met in fourth year when I was on placement with them, away placement. So you'll meet people throughout your 5 years. So I wouldn't worry too much about meeting.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Catherine. We've got another question. How do you ask for help without looking like you can't cope? So once again, I think in terms of support services, we've got a massive support service system within Cardiff Uni, because like we said before, we've got personal tutors who are basically it's a very personalized collection with one academic academic staff member, and they are continuously there to help you out, and they do tend to meet you quite regularly. So you've got that way of support as well. And we've also got something called My Medic, which is basically a service that is specifically for medical students that basically help them with any problems they might have, be it mental health issues, be it you just simply not being able to cope up with the course. So in terms of support, we've got a lot of support available. Does Asha or Catherine know any other support service that is out there? I can't think of any right off the top of my head. Yeah.
I would say that it's so important to look after your mental health at uni. It's not, to be completely honest, it's not going to be highs all the time. You'll have your highest of highs and your lowest of lows. And it's important to have a good support network around with you when that happens. I know a lot of people who've struggled with mental health. I've personally struggled with my own mental health as well. And I would say my biggest advice is, I know it's really daunting, but never be afraid to ask for help from friends, family, support services. As you said, My Medic is brilliant. They will set meetings with you. They'll go through like your day-to-day. They'll try and come up with methods to help you, whether it's you're putting off work or you're just coping, like can't really cope much. There is also options to you can have an interruption of study as well. So if you really aren't coping too well, you can take a break and you can discuss that with your head of years as well. That's another people that you can email. Head of years are really good for that as well. And everyone is just there to support you. The staff just want to make sure that you're okay. And yeah, so.
Yeah, perfect. And also just to mention, yeah, we've also got something called the Medic Family Scheme. So basically, as soon as you join the medical school as a first year, we've got a family scheme. So basically, a second year would be your medic parent, and you've got this nice family of 4 to 5 kids. So basically 5 first years, and then 2 second years being the parents, and you've also got your grandparents who are basically third years. It's this nice family scheme that you can always kind of mingle around and make friends with. You've got your medic siblings. It's a really nice scheming play to kind of help you with just adapting to uni life, and that is also a great way of getting support as well. And we've also got MedSoc, which is basically the society for medical students, basically with a massive a welfare group that basically has welfare specific events that help you with your mental health, your well-being, and they've got revision sessions. There's so much going on just to help you look after yourself. So I think in terms of support, we've got a very, very good support network. We've also got another common theme of questions revolving around extracurriculars and how much time you have for extracurriculars. So does anyone want to have a go at that? Just basically free time, extracurriculars, and what you can do during extracurricular activities. Asha, would you like to have a go at that, if that's okay?
So I think with extracurriculars, it's sort of knowing when you have to do things and when they are. So for example, Wednesday afternoons are always free for sports. So if you want to join the sport, that is safe, you can join it. It's not going to affect if you can attend a lecture, if you go to a tutorial, because that's protected time for you to do a sport. Or if you're not part of society, you can go to the gym, you can, I don't know, go for lunch with your friends. Like, it's just protected time that afternoon to do whatever you want, but also sort of planning around your time. So I wouldn't say there's a limit to how many extracurriculars you can do or how much time you have, but it's more just sort of knowing to plan around it, saying if you're going to do something a Friday evening or a Thursday evening, but if you have a tutorial that next day, do the pre-reading before you go out to do whatever your extracurricular is. And sort of, I wouldn't say there's a time limit personally. I don't know if anyone else has a differing opinion, but it's just sort of make sure you plan around it. That way you can have your fun and also keep on top of your work.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And on a similar note, would you all like to tell us what societies are there at Cardiff University? It's just because we've got a few questions about the societies available as well. Nathan, would you like to have a go at that?
Yes, there's plenty of different ones. There's a lot of your typical sports societies that you would expect, things like football, basketball, rugby, things like lacrosse. But there's also plenty of different societies. One that I'm a part of that I will be shamelessly repping, but I know has been really popular in the past, is the Wilderness and Expedition Medicine Society that we've got in Cardiff. So we basically do first aid scenarios across Wales, and kind of how healthcare can interact in different environments. So there's plenty of different opportunities like that to get involved. There's also things like yoga. We've also got a Taylor Swift Appreciation Society. And what you can do is, if there's not a society in something that you like, you can make one, as long as there's 20 students involved. So there's so many different groups to get involved with. Have a look on the SU, the Cardiff Students' Union webpage, and you can see all the societies on there. There's some absolutely fantastic ones. So plenty of opportunity to network.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. We've also got another interesting question from Lakshmita. What were your favorite parts of year one, both academic and social? Catherine, would you like to give a quick answer on that? If that's fine.
Yeah, so academic side, I think just learning something, just going from A levels and to actually put it into practice. Probably the full body dissections, I think. Looking back, I really did appreciate that. I know not many unis offer that, and I was lucky enough to have done it pre-COVID. But when you're there, it is really different to all the textbooks you see, like textbook images and Google images you see. I remember opening up the arm and finding it really hard to tell like muscles, nerves, blood vessels, because it all kind of looks the same color. And I thought that was just really interesting. Like, it's really good. Looking back, you realize how much you do appreciate having that part of your curriculum. In terms of non-curricular activities, I think the people I met, the friends I made, I think going out in Cardiff, I've seen a couple of questions on the social life, the nightlife in Cardiff. There are loads of clubs in town that you can go to. There will be clubs. There's our SU as well. I think our SU I would really recommend. They have club nights like Wednesday, Saturday, and there are more clubs opening up in Cardiff, kind of just every year as well. So I think I made the most of that in first and second year, just because I knew I really wanted to enjoy it and enjoy being with a bunch of different people and have all these new experiences. And I did join a few sports societies as well, so that was fun. And I actually joined a sports society this year, so it doesn't really matter if you're in first year or fourth year, there is always time to pick up a new hobby or join a new society.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. We also have a few questions revolving about around traveling from and to placement. Does anyone want to have a go at explaining how the traveling thing works, transport works for placements? Yeah.
So there's many different options depending where your placement is. So usually before you start, for example, I'm a third year, so we do placement blocks, not just specific days, but even in first and second year. The university does have a bus service. So it's a bus that picks you up at Heath, so UHW at the campus, and then it will take you to wherever your hospital or your GP is. And sort of they send you a survey before you start and they say, do you require transport? Because some people bring cars, some people won't. You might be able to get a lift with a friend. So you sort of answer that survey. Yes, I need transport. No, I don't need transport. If not enough people do the survey, the public transport is an option. And again, they reimburse you if, for example, you have to take public transport from Cardiff to Newport. Further away, again, in third year, it's the same survey and you get a bus there as well, and you do get lifts. And then if you have further away placements like West Wales, North Wales, the university will provide you with transport there and back. There'll be like a big coach that meets you and you'll get travel there and back. So a lot of the transport is organized for you. I would say just pay attention to your emails so you don't miss the opportunity. Or, you know, often you'll find people before we start placement blocks just asking around, hey, are you going here? Is this your GP? Is this your hospital? And you sort of organize lifts in that way. But there are many options and things might change by the time you get there. But there is quite a lot of transport available to you. So you don't worry about having to spend a bunch of money, because often there is a free option or you get reimbursed.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that, Asha. And we also had another question about small group learning, and basically they wanted to know how much small group learning was there and how often you had it. So like it was mentioned previously before, we tend to have tutorials and small group sessions called CBL, case-based learning sessions, apart from the lectures. So these groups so case-based learning is about 9 to 11 students, and tutorials tend to be an average of about 20 students, or it can also be a slightly larger group of about 30 to 40 students. So all of these sessions are more personalized than lectures, I would say. So you do have a very good balance of personalized sessions as well, where you can get your questions answered in addition to the larger lectures as well. And we also got another theme of questions about transport around Cardiff. So basically they want to know if we can use public transport in Cardiff, or do we have to have a car if we want to commute or move around? Catherine, Nathan, does anyone want to? Yeah, you want to go for it?
I would say the buses in Cardiff are great. They come probably every 20 minutes. I'd say there are also next bikes or city bikes or whatever they're calling them now, to travel around, which are really useful. And again, Cardiff is not the biggest city, so it's really easy to walk around. You know, it takes me probably like 20 minutes to walk into town, probably about 25 minutes to walk into Heath. So like everything in Cardiff is just such a walkable distance. Having a car is really useful as well if you want to do day trips out, for example, like if you want to pop into Barry, if you want to do day trips, up to the Brecons. I'd say having a car is great, but the public transport tends to be quite decent for Cardiff. But yeah, other than that, I'd probably just say walk and bring an umbrella because it rains a lot.
Just to add to that, there is a Cardiff Uni like Next Bike renting bike scheme, and I think you get a free 30-minute trip. So anytime you want to rent a bike, if you sort of put the code in, use it for 30 minutes and return it within 30 minutes, that trip is free. And it's as many times a day as you want, as long as it's just 30 minutes. So you don't even have to spend any money because Cardiff is pretty walkable in 30 minutes, let alone on a bike. So like, don't worry about spending too much money on transport.
Yeah, perfect. I think we all agree on that. In terms of commuting, it's very, very convenient and easy. We've also got another question from an anonymous attendee. Please, can you explain the route to transfer to Bangor University second year onwards? Are you permanently there? And is your degree still awarded by Cardiff University? I think that's about the carer program, if I'm not wrong. Does anyone know about it? Does anyone? Yeah.
I had a friend who did carer programs. So in her third year, she spent her third year in Bangor, and instead of hospital placements like we had in third year, I think the majority of time was spent in GP, and she got given accommodation when she was up in Bangor, but from what I remember, I think it is only the third year and then you're back in Cardiff for your remainder 2 years, so you don't get a different kind of degree. It's the same degree, it's just essentially like a year out living in Bangor.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. We also got another question from an anonymous attendee. Has Cardiff got a diverse student population, and are there opportunities to express different cultures and ethnicities? Yes, I think in terms of diversity, Cardiff has a very, very diverse student population from different parts of the world. We've also got different societies, and I personally am also an international student. So I think in terms of society, you've got different cultural societies, depending on which part of the world you're from, and whether you like a common theme. For example, Nathan spoke about the Telesur Society, or if we want something more culturally specific, you've got, I can't think of names of societies specifically off the top of my head, but trust me, there are a lot of culture and societies out there, and you will definitely come into a very diverse student population. We also got another question about the age diversity within the course. So basically just wondering the age diversity within the course, as I will be a graduate when starting the course. Does anyone want to talk about that?
Yeah, in each year we definitely do have a number of graduates. We have the graduate entry medicine route where I think you join the undergraduate years from second year onwards. But I've definitely got plenty of friends who are graduates, some in their 30s, and it is a very welcoming place to be. So really don't worry about that.
Yeah, thank you. Also, we've got a running theme of questions revolving around how we study and asking for any revision tips. Does anyone want to share their ideas on this? Any revision tips you all think are very successful and might help everyone out there?
I would say the best way to revise would be this method called active recall. So instead of just, writing down notes, copying them out, reading them, I think, as Nathan said earlier, make sure you test yourself at the end, because then you really will know what you do and don't know. And I would kind of focus a lot of energy on trying to figure out like what the kind of gaps are, and just make sure that you quiz yourself constantly. The last couple of years I've just used Anki, to be fair. Flashcards are great, but that's just my way of learning. So I think if you figure out your best way of learning, like whether you're a visual learner or you're an auditory learner, and then go from there. But I would say just make sure that you do quiz yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. And we also got another question from Caris, and I think we had a similar question revolving around this. Do you need to buy any specific equipment, for example, books for first year? So any equipment that we need to get, any books in specific? If so, how do we get access to those books as well? Yeah.
You have to buy anything. I think the library is brilliant and you can get every book that you need, every resource. A lot of books have online copies now as well. So I actually didn't buy any books in first year. I don't think I've ever bought a medicine book. I did find some flashcards useful in first year for anatomy. that just was useful for me because I'm quite a visual learner, but really don't worry. The one thing that I know some people might have had to buy is stethoscopes. I know in my year we were given them, but I think in some of the younger years that might have changed now. So I'll have to double check. I don't know if you know more about that, Agbo.
So for our year, we had to buy our own stethoscopes, but I did hear something about it changing. I'm not 100% sure about it again. But then I think the third year, so basically the year above us, I think got their stethoscopes as well. But our year onwards, we had to buy our own stethoscopes. Yeah, Nathan. Were you saying something, or were you done with your answer? Sorry, I just
No, so
butted.
yeah, I think just on stethoscopes to be confirmed. So don't go out and buy any just yet in case you don't need to. But yeah, we'll have to double check.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for that. And we also got another question from an anonymous attendee. Is it possible to have a job outside of study? Yeah, Asha, do you want to say anything about that?
So it is possible to have a job outside of studying. So for example, I've done jobs. There's a web part of the student union. It's called Job Shop. So they'll put on jobs that are just like either ongoing jobs throughout the whole year or jobs that are just one-day events. And that way you can earn a bit of extra money. And also, for example, I work in retail and it's just on the weekends. So it's sort of, there are jobs you can find that help you, like you can do it alongside your studies. For example, tutoring is something that a lot of people do, like online tutoring on MyTutor or other websites, because there's flexible hours and it's often things you already know, like A-level chemistry or biology or GCSE maths or something. So it's not too taxing on you and you can do it as many times or as little as you want to do it. So don't worry, there are ways to make money at university. It's just sort of planning, unless you plan on working 9 to 5, that'd be quite hard. But any sort of part-time jobs, they're quite easy to find and you can do them.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. So we also got an anonymous attendee asking us, is anatomy taught in second year as well? Is cadaveric dissection only taught in first year? Do you feel like you have enough guidance to know what you're doing when you're doing the dissection? So I personally am a second year, and I just went through first year as well, yeah? So I think, so yeah, anatomy is taught in second year as well. And in terms of guidance, I think there is a lot of support because what happens is once we're in the anatomy center, we're with a small group of about 5 to 6 people maximum, and then you kind of work through the dissection on your own. They've got booklets that they give out and you kind of follow the steps on it. But once again, if you have any questions, there are plenty of tutors walking around. You just raise your hand and then someone is there to always help you out. So I think in terms of dissection and support with it, you do have a lot of guidance to help you with it. And you also got online pre-reading support material kind of complementing it. So it's quite, you've got a very good level of guidance. So I think it's really good. Yeah, we've also got another question from an anonymous attendee. How do you go from 5th year into a job? Catherine, because you're in 5th year, would you like to? Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually changing for us. So you do your progress tests, you do your finals in 4th year. You will also have progress tests in 5th year, which you just need to pass, and then you have a prescribing exam that you need to do, which is like, it's just pass or fail. And then with regards to the SJT, that is actually currently changing for my next year. So I'm currently intercalating this year and going into 5th year next year. So with regards to the SJT, I'm not entirely sure if they're getting rid of that entirely or if they're going to keep it. So with regards to the job after 5th year, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think by the time you guys get there, it will probably change again. I will say though that you will have, if you do decide to stay in Wales after, you will have your last placement block in the hospital that you will be in as you work as an F1, which I think is an amazing opportunity to get to know your way around the hospital, get to know how it works, get to know your team. So yeah, but with regards to how you actually get into the job, it just seems to change all the time. So I mean, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing for 5th year, so I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that question. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to quickly run through a few more common themes of questions. So we've got a common theme of question about intercalation. So what you all think about intercalations? Do you think it's good if you do it, or basically your opinions on it? So does anyone want to talk about that?
I think it depends what you want to get out of your intercalation. I think if you are interested in research, I think intercalation is a great opportunity to expand on that, you do have your SSCs throughout med school, but an intercalation and a dissertation at the end of that is a really good way to explore your interest in research. It depends if you just want to go straight through, like some of my friends just wanted to do the 5 years, get a job, start earning. I intercalated because I just wanted to experience something different for the year, and I did it under the bioscience school. So I did physiology this year, and it's very, very different, just having lectures all the time. It did make me miss placement a little bit, actually, just being around people, because you end up, it's a completely different way of organizing your time. So that's very dependent on you and your experience, and it varies year to year. So for my year, I'd probably say about a third of my year intercalated. But for the year below, I know not many people have, just because there is a new exam incoming and a lot of people just wanted to go straight through. So it very much depends on your preference. It depends where you're at as well. Come end of third year, end of fourth year. It's very dependent. Some people have intercalated before their finals, so straight after third year. Some people have decided no, they just want to get their finals out the way and then intercalate. So it varies. I think it's maybe a bit difficult to be like, oh, you should definitely intercalate or you shouldn't definitely intercalate. I think at the end of the day, I think you can just do what's best for you, and go from there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. We also got another question about what sort of assessments are there? How exactly do they test you? So does anyone want to talk about the type of assessments that are there during med school? Asha or Nathan, anyone? Yeah?
Yeah, that's fine. So there's two types of assessments that you'll typically do. One is single best answer. So they are similar to multiple choice, but you might have two options that both would be right. But in terms of medicine, you have to kind of contextualize that to a patient or particular scenario. And those will be your S1 and S2, so your science papers in the first 2 years. And as we mentioned, the progress tests as well. We also have practical exams, and these are called ISCIs or OSCIs, as some medical schools call them. And those are assessed by like a clinical tutor with mock patients and mock scenarios. And that's very like reminiscent of what you would do in the actual day-to-day job as a doctor. So you have the both. You have like the theory and then the practical side. So yeah, similar to a driving test in some ways.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So does anyone want to quickly talk about what the typical timetable of a first year would look like? Just because that's a common question as well. So as a final question, does anyone want to talk about that? Just the timetable in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that quickly. So you'll have a bit of everything, like we've mentioned the anatomy, you've got your lab-based work, you've got small group seminars, you've got lectures, so you've got loads of variety of how to learn. So there's plenty. There should be some mock ones online. I'd recommend you have a look on those as well, because I'm not sure we've got enough time to go through all of them.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot, Nathan. So once again, thank you everyone for joining today's session. We've tried our best to answer all of your questions, and unfortunately, if we haven't, do send them to admissions@cardiff.ac.uk. And thank you for joining. So Diolch, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.